What is it about the roar of engines and the chaos of the sky that still grips us decades later? From cockpit claustrophobia to breathtaking dogfights, these 15 WWII aerial combat films don't just tell stories, they drop you straight into history at 20,000 feet. Some are legends, others forgotten gems, but each one will leave you breathless. Strap in and don't blink. You're about to relive the war in the air like never before. 12 O'Clock High, 1949. Before Top Gun, before CGI flight simulators, there was 12 O'Clock High, a film that dared to strip the glory from aerial combat and reveal its human toll. Directed by Henry King and starring Gregory Peck, this 1949 classic isn't just about bombing missions over Nazi Germany. It's about leadership under fire and the invisible wounds of command. Set in the early days of America's involvement in World War II, the film follows Brigadier General Frank Savage, a by-the-book officer tasked with salvaging a demoralized B-17 bomber group. What begins as a mission of discipline and restoration soon unravels into a psychological descent as Savage realizes that pushing men to survive also pushes them to their breaking points. Peck's performance as Savage is a masterclass in controlled intensity, capturing both the burden of leadership and the slow erosion of empathy that comes with war. What makes 12 O'Clock High unforgettable is its authenticity. The film used actual combat footage and remains one of the most accurate portrayals of the air war over Europe. Pilots, veterans, and military historians have long hailed it as essential viewing, not just for its realism, but for its haunting themes of sacrifice, trauma, and duty. Decades later, this black-and-white drama still lands with staggering force. It dares to ask, how much can a man give before he breaks? And more importantly, how many must break before victory is won? 12 O'Clock High isn't just a war movie, it's a reckoning in the sky. Battle of Britain, 1969. If you want to understand the sheer desperation, heroism, and chaos of the RAF's finest hour, Battle of Britain drops you right into the cockpit. Directed by Guy Hamilton and featuring an all-star cast including Michael Caine, Laurence Olivier, and Christopher Plummer, this film recreates the pivotal 1940 air campaign that stopped Hitler's invasion plans cold. Shot with astonishing realism, the film famously used actual Spitfires and Messerschmitts flown by skilled pilots. No models, no fakes. The dogfights, choreographed with surgical precision, remain some of the most jaw-dropping ever put on screen. You don't just watch these battles. You feel the rattle of machine guns. You hear the scream of engines diving out of the clouds. You hold your breath. But Battle of Britain isn't just a visual spectacle. It's a human story of young men, barely out of school, defending their nation from annihilation. The film shows us the cost of courage, the strain on relationships, and the bureaucratic bickering behind closed doors. And through it all, it honors the few, the RAF pilots whose valor turned the tide of World War II. The historical accuracy and scope are unparalleled. Everything, from squadron formations to radio chatter, is meticulously researched. For anyone who wants to know what it was like to fight over English skies, Battle of Britain isn't just a film, it's a time machine with wings. Memphis Belle, 1990. There's something about Memphis Belle that lingers in the heart long after the final credits roll. It's not just a war film, it's a love letter to camaraderie, sacrifice, and the terrifying beauty of flight. Directed by Michael Caton Jones and produced by Catherine Weiler, daughter of the legendary William Wyler, who filmed the real Memphis Belle crew in 1944, this 1990 film brings history to life with both reverence and cinematic flair. Set in May 1943, the story follows the crew of a B-17 Flying Fortress on the eve of their 25th and final bombing mission over Nazi-occupied Europe. If they succeed, they'll be the first U.S. bomber crew to complete their tour and return home. But one wrong move could mean death for all 10 men. The cast, featuring a young Matthew Modine, Harry Connick Jr., and Eric Stoltz, delivers raw and earnest performances. Each character brings a different flavor of fear, humor, and hope, reminding us that behind every uniform was a soul desperate to survive. What truly elevates Memphis Belle are its flight scenes. The cinematography captures the claustrophobia of the bomber's interior, the thunder of flak exploding outside, and the gut-wrenching moments when death is a mere heartbeat away. The tension is so thick, you forget you're watching actors. Beyond the action, the film celebrates the unbreakable bond forged under fire. In a world torn apart by war, Memphis Belle finds its heart in the sky, where courage, friendship, and fate collide at 30,000 feet. The Dam Busters, 1955. Before there was Star Wars, there was The Dam Busters, the film George Lucas famously studied for inspiration during the Death Star trench run. But this 1955 British classic isn't just a footnote in cinematic history. It's one of the most riveting and ingenious WWII films ever made, chronicling a real-life mission so audacious it feels like fiction. Directed by Michael Anderson and starring Richard Todd as Wing Commander Guy Gibson, the film tells the true story of Operation Chastise, an RAF effort to destroy Germany's Ruhr Valley dams using experimental bouncing bombs. These bombs, invented by eccentric genius Barnes Wallis, had to skip across the water like stones before hitting their target. Failure meant death. Success could cripple the Nazi war machine. The film meticulously builds suspense, from the laboratory trials to the flight preparations, culminating in the breathtaking night raid. Shot with miniatures, models, and actual Lancaster bombers, the climax delivers unmatched tension. But what lingers most is the eerie silence before the run, the way every crewman's breath seems to freeze as the bombs skim across moonlit reservoirs. Yet the Dam Busters isn't just about engineering marvels or explosive heroics. It's about obsession, sacrifice, and the fine line between madness and brilliance. It honors the bravery of those who risked everything on a one-way mission, men who placed innovation above fear. Nearly 70 years later, its legacy endures. It's not just a war film, it's a testament to how a radical idea and the courage to see it through can turn the tide of history. Flying Leathernecks, 1951. In Flying Leathernecks, John Wayne doesn't just wear the uniform, he wears the weight of war. Directed by the maverick Nicholas Ray, this 1951 Technicolor gem turns the skies over the Pacific into a crucible of fire, discipline, and impossible decisions. Set during the Guadalcanal campaign, the film follows Major Dan Kirby, a hardened Marine aviator tasked with taking command of a battle-weary fighter squadron. His arrival is met with resistance. His methods are strict, but he knows what the others don't. Softness costs lives, and sentimentality can't survive 20,000 feet above Japanese guns. The aerial combat is stunning for its time, blending actual Marine Corps footage with dramatized dogfights that keep your pulse pounding. Watching F-4F Wildcats and F-6F Hellcats blaze across Pacific skies, you feel the heat, the grit, the claustrophobic tension of air warfare. What sets Flying Leathernecks apart is its moral complexity. Wayne's character isn't just a hero, he's a man torn between duty and compassion. His second-in-command, played by Robert Ryan, serves as the emotional counterweight, challenging Kirby's decisions and forcing the audience to ask, is discipline worth the cost of humanity? The film doesn't flinch. It presents war not as glory, but as grit, men grappling with death, leadership, and each other in the cockpit and on the ground. And in a rare move for a Wayne-led film, it doesn't glamorize combat. Instead, it honors the burden of those who must lead others through hell and back. Red Tails, 2012. Some stories demand to be told and retold with fire, fury, and flight. Red Tails is one of them. This 2012 action drama, produced by George Lucas and directed by Anthony Hemingway, soars on the strength of its subject. The Tuskegee Airmen, America's first black fighter pilots who defied Jim Crow to become legends. Set in 1944, the film follows the 332nd Fighter Group, mocked by some, doubted by most, finally given the chance to prove their worth in combat. Led by Cuba Gooding Jr. and Terrence Howard, the cast captures both the swagger and soul of men caught between two wars, one against the Axis powers and another against systemic racism at home. From the first roar of a P-51 Mustang engine, Red Tails pulls you into a world of grit, honor, and aerial spectacle. The dogfights are pure adrenaline, sharp, fast, and beautifully choreographed. The film doesn't shy away from heroism. It embraces it. With slick visuals and a rousing score, it makes every barrel roll and bombing run feel earned. But underneath the explosions and cheers lies a deeper resonance. These were men told they couldn't fight, couldn't lead, couldn't fly. And yet, they flew higher and truer than most. They didn't just win dogfights, they shattered ceilings. Though Red Tails was met with mixed reviews, its heart is undeniable. It reminds audiences that courage isn't always about the enemy in front. It's also about the silence behind. These men weren't just pilots, they were pioneers, and their story still deserves every mile of sky. 633 Squadron, 1964. 633 Squadron is a symphony of roaring engines, cliff-hugging runs, and the kind of British stoicism that made WWII legends. Directed by Walter Grauman and scored by Ron Goodwin's unforgettable theme, this 1964 classic may be fictional, but its spirit flies true and high. The story centers on Wing Commander Roy Grant, played by the cool-headed Cliff Robertson, an American pilot leading a Royal Air Force squadron on a deadly mission in Nazi-occupied Norway. Their task? To destroy a heavily fortified fuel plant buried in a narrow fjord, so narrow only daring low-altitude flight through enemy flak can even reach it. From the moment the Mosquito bombers take off, the film grips you. The aerial photography, shot using real de Havilland mosquitoes, was groundbreaking. It's no surprise George Lucas later studied this film for inspiration when crafting Star Wars. You can almost see the DNA of the Death Star trench run in 633 Squadron's pulse-pounding climax. But what gives the film its soul is the camaraderie. We watch pilots bond, break, and bleed. The mission is just the final test. Everything before, grief, sacrifice, brief romance, is what makes you care. Grant is not a gung-ho hero. He's tired, worn down by loss, and yet he flies, because others count on him too. Decades later, 633 Squadron still thrills not just because of the flying, but because it reminds us what's at stake when brave men take flight toward near-certain death and do it anyway. Catch-22, 1970. No film about World War II air combat dares to be as absurd, surreal, and strangely harrowing as Catch-22. Directed by Mike Nichols and adapted from Joseph Heller's legendary novel, this 1970 satire doesn't just showcase the insanity of war, it traps you in it. At the heart of the chaos is Captain John Yossarian, a U.S. Army Air Force's bombardier who's desperate to escape the war. But every time he gets close, his superiors raise the number of required missions. He can ask to be grounded, but that would mean he's sane, proving he isn't crazy, which makes him ineligible to leave. That's Catch-22. The film weaves dark comedy with chilling combat realism. The flight scenes are hypnotically eerie. Bombers glide across Mediterranean skies like angels of death. But it's what happens in between, beheadings, bureaucracy, meaningless deaths, that truly horrifies. War here is a machine that eats logic, and Nichols ensures every cog feels sharp. Visually, the film is stunning. With stark desert bases, glistening aircraft, and perfectly symmetrical wide shots, Catch-22 is as much a philosophical film as it is a war movie. Arkin's deadpan delivery and the stellar ensemble cast underscore the absurdity of trying to survive a war run by lunatics in pressed uniforms. For some viewers, Catch-22 hits too close to the truth. For others, it's cathartic, but all agree it's unforgettable. This is the anti-Memphis Belle, the film that strips honor from the skies and replaces it with existential dread, and in doing so, still manages to thrill. Midway, 2019. Roland Emmerich's Midway isn't just a historical drama, it's a cinematic thunderclap, a modern war epic that catapults viewers right into the Pacific's most pivotal naval battle. With jaw-dropping visual effects and an unapologetically patriotic core, it delivers a gripping ride through the sky that's both reverent and adrenaline-charged. The film chronicles the events leading up to and including the Battle of Midway in June 1942, a moment when the United States Navy, outnumbered and underestimated, dealt a decisive blow to the Japanese fleet. At its center are the American aviators who flew dive bombers straight into enemy fire with nerves of steel and no guarantee of survival. Led by characters like Lieutenant Dick Best, the film humanizes these fearless pilots. You see them joke on base, fight through fear, and ultimately redefine heroism in the sky. The film doesn't just show battles, it immerses you in them. Dive-bombing scenes over carriers make your stomach drop. Dogfights above ocean firestorms feel almost too real. But Midway is more than action. It's a tribute to calculated risk, split-second decisions, and the thin line between victory and annihilation. The film doesn't shy from loss or failure. Instead, it honors those who fell without glory and those who rose from it. Critics may have been divided on its storytelling, but for audiences, Midway soared, especially for those craving authenticity and aerial spectacle. It's a modern love letter to the courage of the greatest generation, painted across the sky in fire and fury. Dunkirk, 2017. Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk isn't a traditional war film, it's an experience. A visceral, pulse-racing symphony of land, sea, and air, this 2017 masterpiece places you inside the cockpit, beneath the waves, and on the beaches of France as 400,000 Allied soldiers await rescue under relentless Luftwaffe fire. Told through 3 interwoven timelines, the film's aerial component is the crown jewel. Tom Hardy plays Farrier, a Royal Air Force Spitfire pilot who patrols the skies above Dunkirk, low on fuel, but high on resolve. The dogfights are stunningly immersive. Nolan used real planes and mounted IMAX cameras to capture every jolt, tilt, and gut-churning barrel roll with terrifying clarity. When Farrier locks onto a German fighter and unleashes his guns, it's as if the audience pulls the trigger with him. But what makes Dunkirk extraordinary isn't just its technical achievement, it's the emotion under pressure. With minimal dialogue and maximum tension, Nolan forces viewers to feel the suffocating claustrophobia of a sinking ship, the helplessness of watching enemy planes descend, and the desperation in a pilot's eyes as his engine sputters over open water. Hans Zimmer's score, built on the ticking of a watch, melds perfectly with the film's relentless pace. Every second counts, every bullet echoes. Farrier's final silent glide over the beach, sacrificing his escape for the lives of others, is one of the most haunting moments in modern cinema. Dunkirk is more than thrilling. It's haunting. It reminds us that even amid chaos, grace can soar. The War Lover, 1962. In The War Lover, the enemy isn't just the flak guns or fighter planes, it's the man behind the stick. Steve McQueen delivers one of his most unsettling performances as Captain Buzz Rickson, a hotshot B-17 pilot who lives for war, not in spite of its danger, but because of it. Directed by Philip Leacock, the 1962 film explores a different kind of aerial warfare, the psychological one. Set at an American bomber base in England, the story follows Buzz and his co-pilot Bo, who begins to question the true nature of courage when he sees Rickson's reckless, almost suicidal hunger for combat. McQueen is magnetic and terrifying. With every mission, Rickson flirts with death not for victory, but for the high. While others dread the skies, he's alive only when under fire. His disregard for protocol, safety, and even human life sets the tone for a film that probes the fine line between hero and sociopath. The aerial sequences, shot in stark black and white, are claustrophobic and tense. Flak bursts like deadly snowflakes, engines roar, and inside the belly of the bomber, young men sweat bullets as they wrestle with fear and fate. The war lover doesn't celebrate battle. It interrogates it. It asks, what kind of man thrives on war? And what happens when the thrill of the kill becomes the only thing keeping a pilot in the sky? While often overshadowed by other WWII classics, The War Lover remains a chilling psychological profile of wartime addiction and a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is sitting right beside you in the cockpit. Torah, 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 1970. Few films attempt the impossible and succeed like Torah, 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 the 1970 historical epic that recreated the Pearl Harbor attack with stunning objectivity and scale. What makes it especially thrilling isn't just the action, it's the precision. Every frame feels like a ticking clock heading toward one of the most shocking moments in U.S. history. Directed jointly by Richard Fleischer, Kinji Fukasaku, and Toshio Masuda, the film presents both perspectives with surgical fairness. It opens with intelligence oversights, political tensions, and bureaucratic delays, all while Japanese aircraft carriers silently approach Hawaii. Then, the sky falls. The attack itself, occupying the film's explosive final act, is a masterclass in practical effects. No CGI, just real planes, massive sets, and daring stunt coordination. Dive bombers screech over battleships, torpedoes streak through the harbor, and anti-aircraft fire tears the sky as U.S. sailors scramble for survival. It's chaos, but orchestrated chaos that mirrors the true events minute by minute. What sets Torah, Torah, Torah apart is its tone. It's not vengeful, not overly sentimental. It's clinical, respectful, and exact. That detachment, paradoxically, makes the devastation even more chilling. You're not watching a spectacle. You're witnessing history, and you can't look away. The film is also an unparalleled teaching tool. Its accuracy in detailing the political missteps and miscommunications leading to the attack has earned it a permanent place in military academies. Over 50 years later, Torah, Torah, Torah still thrills, not with fantasy, but with the brutal reality of what happens when the sky turns against you. Fighter Squadron, 1948. Before the polished bravado of modern blockbusters, Fighter Squadron brought raw, patriotic fervor to the screen with roaring engines and Technicolor fire. Directed by Raoul Walsh, this 1948 film may seem like old-school Hollywood, but its dogfights and squadron spirit still pack a punch. The film stars Edmund O'Brien as Major Ed Hardin, a no-nonsense fighter pilot known for breaking rules and enemy formations. Hardin's leadership is tested when he clashes with a by-the-book subordinate, played by a young Robert Stack in one of his earliest roles. Their conflict echoes the eternal war within every unit. Follow the manual or follow your gut. What makes Fighter Squadron thrilling is its use of real P-47 Thunderbolts, flown by actual Air National Guard pilots. The aerial sequences are fluid, fast, and often dangerously close to the ground. You feel the torque of the aircraft, the rattle of gunfire, the heat of battle, with no parachute of modern effects. Released just 3 years after World War II ended, the film was practically contemporary. Its emotions are still raw, its optimism unshaken. The dialogue may feel dated, but the message is timeless. In war, courage isn't loud. It's just the sound of a throttle opening as you take off one more time. Fighter Squadron remains a vibrant snapshot of post-war cinema and a reminder that sometimes the thrill of the skies lies not in the spectacle, but in the spirit that gets you off the ground in the first place. Piece of Cake, 1988. Though technically a British TV miniseries, Piece of Cake deserves a place on this list for its stunning realism, immersive storytelling, and haunting portrayal of wartime aviation. Based on Derek Robinson's novel, the 6-part series follows Hornet Squadron, a fictional RAF fighter group, as they fly Hawker Hurricanes during the early years of World War II. What sets Piece of Cake apart isn't just its aerial authenticity, but its brutal honesty. The series begins with swagger and confidence, but slowly peels back the layers of naivety as the war grinds on. Pilots die, not in dramatic glory, but in quiet, often meaningless moments. There's no sugarcoating here, just a growing sense of futility. The camaraderie among the squadron is gripping. These are young men, cocky, flawed, human, facing death every day. You come to know them intimately, and that makes their losses devastating. The series dares to question wartime heroics, British command structures, and the illusion of control in chaos. The production values are surprisingly strong, with detailed period sets, rich character arcs, and unforgettable flight sequences that rival any big-budget film. It's a slow burn, but one that sears itself into your memory. Piece of Cake may not be as famous as Battle of Britain or Memphis Belle, but it's arguably more truthful. And in that truth, it finds its power. It reminds us that war is not won only by tactics or machines, but by flesh, bone, fear, and the will to fly again, knowing you may not return. The Bridges at Tokorri, 1954. Though technically set during the Korean War, The Bridges at Tokorri earns its place among World War II aerial combat films for its raw emotional weight, searing jet combat, and universal themes of duty and mortality. The shadow of World War II looms over every frame, its wounds fresh, its lessons unresolved. Directed by Mark Robson and based on James Michener's novella, the film stars William Holden as Lieutenant, Harry Brubaker, a World War II Navy pilot reluctantly called back to active service. Now flying carrier-based Grumman F-9F Panthers over Korea, Brubaker is torn between his love for his wife and the mission to bomb heavily defended bridges that could cost him his life. The aerial combat is stunning, sharp, fast, and claustrophobic. Real footage of jet takeoffs and landings on aircraft carriers is seamlessly integrated with intense cockpit scenes. The final bombing run over Tokorri is a white-knuckle experience, heightened by the knowledge that the odds are grim. But Tokorri isn't just about war. It's about the silence between missions, the inner war every soldier carries. Holden gives one of his most vulnerable performances, asking the question that echoes across all wars. What are we doing here? The film ends not with triumph, but with heartbreak. There's no fist-pumping finale, just a sobering reflection on sacrifice. The Bridges at Tokorri may depict a different war, but its soul is born from World War II's aftermath, making it a deeply relevant and emotionally resonant finale to this list. These films prove the sky was not just a battlefield, it was a crucible of courage, sacrifice, and humanity. Whether you're a history buff or a thrill seeker, these World War II aerial combat classics still soar. Which one left you shaken? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more war-era revelations.